today's video, we're going to attempt first start on the Cobra. Hope it works. this engine in my Cobra. If you saw some previous videos, little snippets, it kind of coughed just a hair when I was going through the systems, but I didn't consider that a start. We'll get to my next start on this in just a minute. A couple things to note. Really, it started right up, and this was really with a completely guessed calibration on the ECU. I was quite happy with that. Because it's a new cam, I was trying to get it to about 2,000 RPM as quickly as possible. You do that and then start to vary the RPM some. You do this for breaking in a cam on a pushrod engine because it'll get oil up to the cam and try to get everything broken in, get your wear patterns established, things like that. The reason that I shut it down after only a couple of minutes was because the bottom radiator hose had fallen off. I then went through and tightened all of the hoses, let the engine cool for a little bit so I wasn't pouring cold water into a hot engine. And when I did put some water back in, I made sure that it was warm, trying to not have any kind of thermal shocks or anything like that. So now we'll see start number 2.
It's all good.
And so that's the first start of the Cobra. At the end of all of this, I was able to drive the car back into the garage. I'll just make a few notes with this so that hopefully if you're doing this in the future, you don't make some of the mistakes I did. First one was the fact that the lower radiator hose had burst off. That was definitely my fault. I had not tightened the hose clamps as much as I had thought I had. I thought that I had gone through and tightened them all down. Turns out they were all somewhat loose when I did that. They weren't visibly loose, like they weren't falling off. So that was a mistake on my part. I should have tightened them down more. The other thing that I could have done, and I've done this on the suspension to make sure I don't have this same mistake there, is I could have made sure that they were very visibly loose. You know, we'll get to this in a future video where I'm prepping for the first drive, but like the tie rod ends, for instance, I have the nuts back way off so that there's no way I could look at them and think that maybe they were okay. Obviously a radiator hose falling off is not nearly as big of a deal as a tie rod falling off, but you still don't want to have it happen, and especially, you know, for the first drive. You'll notice towards the end that there was some smoke coming from the engine, and that was ultimately why I decided to shut it down and then put it back into the garage. The reason for that was because I had started with the valve covers not bolted down, so there was oil leaking out. This is actually recommended in some things that you read so that you can make sure that the valve train is working correctly, make sure the push rods are spinning, the rockers are rocking, and all of that. And then the other thing was that I didn't know if the valve covers were really going to be tall enough for the rockers, and it turns out that on the driver's side, or on the passenger side there, where the breather is, it sticks down just enough that it does in fact contact the rockers a little bit. So I needed to go get some spacers for it. So really, this was pretty exciting. I've got over 2 years, over 2.5 years into working on this car. You know, if you've watched my videos, that I have put a lot of work into this engine. There was a lot of thought into all of the pieces that I picked out and why. I am second guessing some of them, and I'll talk about those in another video, but really only a couple of very minor things. And I wanted to get this first start done when I did, to just kind of prove out does everything work right? Does all of the wiring especially work right before I try to put everything in looms and all that and put it into get it ready for first drive. And I think what I proved is that it worked. So hope that you all enjoyed this. Hope it was as exciting for you as it was for me. And I'll record a future video on some of the things that I had to do after the first start. So stay tuned for that. Thanks and have a good day.